infinite plane, doing my thing, do my thing, do my thing, do my thing, infinite plane, yeah. I live on an infinite plane, I live on an infinite plane. They telling me different things, that's supposed to be pulling the strings, but I know they playing the games. Since I found out today, I live on an infinite plane. I ain't playing no games, I'm on a different plane. I live on an infinite plane, yeah. No, the news is fake, they're trying to choose my fate. I know the views is fake, they pushing the global stage. Fake news on the radio wave, all the hoax, the whole world is a stage. Body double like I'm Saddam Hussein, doing my thing. Don't want the fame, just trying to make change. They took down my page, but I'm infinite gang, infinite plane, playing no games. Infinite gang, we ain't playing no games. Infinite plane, I'm on an infinite plane. Infinite plane, the world that I live in is strange. Cause I'm on an infinite plane, I'm doing different things. Yeah, I'm on an infinite plane. I'm on an infinite plane, I'm on an infinite plane. Stay with the infinite gang. Supposed to pull the strings, but they can't cover the game. I'm on the infinite plane. Infinite gang, that's your mouth, I stay more play. Infinite plane society, yeah, man.
Alright, we are live, 7/23/2024, 8:46 p.m. Very special number to the metascriptors. We've mind mapped that number out, but we won't get into that right now. We are looking at a few other responses to the latest fake event, and there's a lot of variations on how this happened. A lot of people are like InfoWars, they're chasing second shooter theories, which is very basic misdirection. There are no second shooters, there are no patsies, and anybody talking about Secret Service agents fumbling around and bringing up DEI, they're falling for a trap. These are actors acting this way to make you think that. Nothing about this was unscripted. And I have a couple of articles here. One, Jim Fetzer said, here's more proof from another expert that we were played in Butler, Pennsylvania by Trump and his team, but for a, quote, worthy cause. Now, this is incomplete. If it was fake, it was therefore by both sides. This wasn't the right tricking the left to score points, just like the school shootings aren't done by the left to trick the right. At the very top, these things are bipartisan. January 6th, both sides are controlled monolithically, and both sides were played. The ruse here is to make you think that it's side versus side, and for him to say Trump and his team did it for a worthy cause is to miss the big picture. And so this is from jimfetzer.org, and I appreciate his take on most things. He's one of the best. However, he's blinkered. You know, he debunked the moon landing, but he still thinks the space station is plausible. Like, that's a major error, a continuity error there. Joachim Hageopan, Trump's acting job fakery in Butler. On July 13th in Butler, Pennsylvania, Trump campaign rally events unfolded that show it was not a misfit lone gunman patsy. After that worn-out lie, the majority of Americans may not be so willing to buy into the mainstream false narrative. So many in-our-face anomalies scream false flag. Now, the term false flag is a flag, a red flag. If you see someone say false flag, just assume they're a Fed. Only the most uninformed conspiracy theorists who have their heads stuck in 2002 and Feds say false flag. The false flag theory is based on an incomplete understanding of what media is, and they look at these events as the media is being tricked or the media is giving a different narrative to the event. And both of these contain the loaded premise that the event actually happened. But here he goes on to say, you catch on, and that's where we're at now with this latest theatrical drama. And he goes on to talk about the different groups and their assessments. He says, quote, there is one more group of Americans that agree the shooting was a false flag and that Thomas Crooks did not act alone. This emerging group assessing available evidence as it emerges are ready to call it an inside job with Trump's collusion. And again, this is the issue here, that this is an inside job. One side did it to trick the other side. If this were the case, the other side would expose it. It's easy. You can do it from your laptop computer, as we have. Trump and his team of insiders were in on this charade from the get-go, staging this amateurishly put together to point fingers at, yeah, this is what I pointed out. They're pointing fingers at DEI Secret Service director, and Biden saying that Trump was in a bullseye. It all, as we've experienced, it all played out according to their plan, according to their little scripts and narratives. But as he goes in here, zero blood visible on Trump's hand after he touches his ear. You can go through it scene by scene, arrive at your own conclusions. I would make this point, though. A lot of people will say, well, I'm a truther. It looks fake to me. No, it didn't. I would really push back against that. If you can say that I can look at this on the screen and declare it fake, then what is your specialty? What is your assessment based upon? You can't just tell some normie it looked fake. And that would qualify or be classified as low information disbelief. It's as flippant as saying, I don't believe in panda bears, because I saw a video on TikTok. You can't just say it looks fake. That's called auto disbelief. That has the same weight as the normie who says it looks real. Oh, it looks real, it looks fake. You can't tell from just the screen. That's the whole point of it. The screen is the window to the magic show, and when you're observing a magic show, and I use this analogy often, you can't see through it if you're in your seat. You'd have to have some advanced knowledge of how the trick works to understand how you're being fooled, but from your perspective, you are foolable, eminently so. In other words, it's not enough to say it looks fake. That's not informed disbelief. And what we strive for here is informed disbelief, to know more about what we don't believe than the believers. And we have to be able to deconstruct it, not merely say in a knee-jerk way, I don't believe it because it's mainstream. And you'll note the same types of people who'll just flippantly say it looks fake have a very shallow assessment in general. And we aim for depth, not shallow takes. This isn't clickbait. The IPR deep dives are about going deep. So we're looking for a deep dive into behind the scene and all the available information, which also means we have to suspend judgment for a little while. Another reason you can't just say it looks fake is you don't have enough facts to say it's fake. You don't have enough facts to say it's real. There should be a waiting period. But you could say, based upon past precedent, in all likelihood, given that it's coming from the pathologically lying media, yeah, it's probably fake, but I'm going to wait. And if you don't wait, if you judge it automatically, you get put onto their roller coaster. I mentioned how the QAnon is well, at first it was a bandwagon, a train. Now it's a roller coaster. Yesterday they were all cheering the death of Biden, and they were worrying about how they're going to change their hats from 4547 to 4548. And I guess you could just modify your Trump hat, get some liquid erase or some whiteout, and turn the 7 into an 8. So they're running around because Laura Loomer spread the rumor that Biden was dying, and sure enough, he came out to show he wasn't dead. So that rumor was just a rumor. My point being, they're on a roller coaster. They chase these current things, they chase these narratives, they react and react and react. And at the end of it, if they had just waited for more information, they could have expended that energy somewhere else, somewhere more productive. Miles Mathis has an article about this. The Trump shooting was, of course, staged. I think it's safe to say that every major psychological operation, every major transformative psychological operation is just staged from top to bottom. Every major PR stunt, they don't take chances. And that's what this was. This was a PR stunt. It's like almost goes without saying that it's staged, but we have to be more precise about what we mean by staged. We don't mean one side tricking the other. And that was my biggest clue when I realized if the right was really trying to preserve their Second Amendment, they wouldn't just be bowled over by these obvious to see through psyops. They wouldn't be falling for these things. They're complicit. Okay, Miles Mathis published this on 7/15. Says This paper immediately went to #1 on Yandex. Trump shooting staged, and several other results on the first page are republications of this. This put me ahead of Time, Fox, New York Post, NBC News, and USA Today. This is Miles Mathis. And this is what makes auto hoaxing work. By calling it fake immediately, you can get ahead of mainstream. And that was the MO for auto hoaxers in general. That's why the term came up. A lot of established false flaggers would get mad because they were consistently outperformed in ratings on YouTube by auto hoaxers who knew enough to know that, yeah, it's a reasonably safe bet that the next thing is fake. If it wasn't fake, they wouldn't be focusing on it. Because there is plenty of real violence and real atrocity, but it doesn't always fit the narrative. And they don't let facts get in the way of these narratives. Okay, let's continue looking at Miles Mathis's take. I hadn't read it all, but I wanted to kind of go over it. Jim Fetzer's take on it should be interesting. I'm going to have to read his tweet thread and see what he actually thinks at someone else's post on it. Because there are some people out there who are 1 foot in the matrix, 1 foot out. And they do some great breakdowns on some things, but they fall for other things. Okay, this is Miles Mathis again. He said, Bing is using the trick we've seen before, rotating the same promoted 20 results over and over. Plus, that search and similar ones have been rigged to take you to listings assuring you it was not staged. These search engines are worthless. I think we all knew this. I mean, it's a closed system anyway. Says, let me preface this, and this is again Miles Mathis, who does a lot of great work. I hate both parties and candidates equally. Everyone is now reading from scripts, and I have admitted the Republicans currently have a better script. They may have been given more rational talking points, but I'm not buying any of the scripts, and I recommend you don't either. You should be looking for ways to drive around both parties and the matrix that has become our world. Yeah, I entirely agree with this. I happen to think that the political horseshoe is the big trap, and you'll see truthers are constantly throwing right-wing memes, culture war memes, like the Secret Service agents. If you see any truthers out there talking about these Secret Service agents being DEI, they're falling for a trap. They were set up to repeat this phrase, which to the left is accepted as a dog whistle of some kind. So now you're sexist, racist just for using this catchphrase. And most truthers don't even know the full meaning of that phrase when looked at from the lens of the left, as crazy as they are. But this is what they do. They load you up with foot bullets. It's not worth participating. I'm not a propaganda mule. I'm not going to carry red pills for Trutherville. I'm not going to carry water for the GOP. And I would agree entirely with Mathis here. I'm an inactivist, conscientious objector. He says somehow all the other fake event specialists like Alex Jones and Mike Adams have forgotten the basic rule that, and I agree with this part, this is great, everything else is fake. That should be our logical and default assumption for any highly promoted event. Yeah, the default. The default should be fake until proven real. You don't need to give them the benefit of the doubt. They've lied to you your entire life. I still have people trying to give NASA the benefit of the doubt. Like, yeah, they've been lying for 55 years about Apollo 11, but maybe there is something to the space station. No, there isn't. It's a movie. And the debate right now, which we're working on settling, in fact, I have to leave at 10 because at 10:03 I have an ISS sighting. I'm going to go record it, or attempt to. But I want to make the point that the burden of proof is not on me. And I'm not a NASA advocate. The fact that they're so terrible at producing convincing evidence is not my problem. But we're trying to make a point here. And this ISS sighting, you can take part in, by the way. There's a flyer I sent out via email. Just go to the website, find the tracking information, and record it. But what we're doing here is we're kind of discussing this point where there are people who are still kind of accepting unfairly the burden of proof when it's not theirs. And you can just reject it. However, the consensus doesn't accept this. So sometimes you have to do a little legwork just to push back against the power of the consensus. In the case of the space station, I'm making this point to do some observations so that we can move the conversation forward and have people bringing their own evidence instead of referring to, well, lots of people have seen it. So we're trying to get more focused on evidence. Evidence over consensus, evidence over narrative. And the fakery is coming from the same places, whether it's above or below. So my point with this is that you're not going to suddenly say, well, maybe the next moon landing is going to be real. No, they faked every previous one. If the precedent has been fake, why would you think this one would be real? Or the next one, or the next one. You can't just drop your auto-hoaxing, you can't just drop your skepticism and say, I've been correct in my assessment, everything's rigged, everything's been predicted in predictive media to condition us to accept it, we've been steered down this path, but this time it's real. This time the media legitimately reported on something. It's not going to happen. That's not how it works. And fake until proven real should be your go-to. And note, it's fake until proven real with this caveat that when it's an event that's highly promoted. And also, proven real just means attended by evidence. And evidence doesn't have to be hard to provide for the media whose job it is to gather evidence. So if the news media says the sky's blue, yeah, that's fine. But when it's an extraordinary claim, that's when you want to fact check. They're a liar. The media is a liar, but it's a good liar. And good liars know you can't lie with every breath. Otherwise, no one will believe you. You have to lie strategically once you've gained their trust. Okay, now let me go on what Miles Mathis has been saying here. He's talking about the specialists who talk about fake events. And they're not specialists. I mean, we know what roles they play here, but goes on to say, everyone seems to conveniently forgotten what a false flag is these days. When was the last time Jones outed a false flag or used the term? Strange, because that's how he made his name. Before 9/11, he was just a loud, obnoxious guy in Austin public access, but when he started yelling 9/11 was a false flag, his big rise began. Today, Jones couldn't spot a false flag from a foot away. Instead, he's promoting this fake event like there's no tomorrow, never even considering the possibility it might be staged. That's because he's an insider. This is the big picture. Jones was an insider to January 6th, and it was as staged as this. Therefore, he knows this is staged. His job is to call it a false flag. His job is to say, it happened, but the mainstream is lying. Look for the second shooter. His job is to maintain the essential reality of the events, every event that he covers. He's damage control. Alex Jones' InfoWars is damage control for mainstream media architecture, for their stories, for their history that they write. Okay, moving on here. Next day, Jones getting ratioed in his own site comments, indicating this is backfiring on them. He's now warning that the deep state will try to take out Trump with a tactical nuke. He's been saying trucks, tactical nukes, drones, poison. These truthers live in a nightmare universe. They're scared. They're terrified. They see a mushroom cloud on TV, they start ducking and covering and quivering on the ground, basically genuflecting before the power of the state. It's pathetic and weak. The cloud phobics, the 5G phobics, the paranoid, it's an affliction. It's a mind virus. Fear. I heard this acronym earlier. Fear. I think it's false evidence appearing real. And I'm not falling for any of this stuff. Goes on to say, and this is what Alex Jones said, Elon Musk, Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan are next. InfoWars really needed to combine the Trump storyboard with the nuke storyboard. This is what they came up with. What's with all the fear mongering? As for Mike Adams, and again, this is Miles Mathis, Mike Adams is a clown. He came out with a video claiming it would be impossible to fake the shooting. Strangely, now that's typical. They'll say, And I've heard a number of lunatics say this. It would be far easier to land on the moon than to fake it. Like, where do these people come from? Where does this argument come from? A rule of thumb really should be anything they can fake in the movies, anything they can fake in science fiction, they can fake on the news. They have. They've been doing it for generations. That's epistemological inversion, and it's pretty sad. Okay, moving on. Another clue here is that the flag is upside down in the photo under the title. Yeah, you can analyze this, and it's pretty clear just by all of the iconic photography that this was a PR stunt. A very successful one, by the way. Then we have the miracle picture of the bullets flying by Trump. Again, the bullet flying by his ear, shot by the same photographer who photographed the Secret Service agent whispering into Bush's ear. The ear being the symbol here. He says they think you're stupid. They know that the programmed are receptive to the programming. They're purely receptive. They're pure passive. And it's passive. To be a mainstream believer is to be a passive receptacle for propaganda. To be a truther is to be a passive receptacle for alternative propaganda. The only active perceivers of media are the ones who are actively rejecting it every second and suspending judgment. The skeptics, the media critics. We're the only ones who are actively engaged with media. You have to understand the rest of them are sleeping. They're passive. They're receptacles. They have mind aids. No mental immune system. No critical functioning. Whether it's mainstream or alternative, they're both in the same big box. Alternative is in a subset, a box within the box. And they're super paranoid and scared. They're scared of Trump getting nuked. I mean, how absurd is this? Anyway, Miles Mathis here is a great writer. His argumentation, his logic is generally flawless. I like his takes on most. He says, since Trump is not known to move 1,000 feet per second himself, it's unclear why the photographer would be using that shutter speed. But let's say he was. If this was an AR-15, the bullet would have slowed to about 2,000 feet per second. So if we just multiply, it should have traveled a quarter of a foot or 3 inches. Is this track 3 inches? No, that's about a foot, which is 4 times too long. Obviously, the bullet would be moving 8,000 feet per second to make a track 1 foot long on a film, open for 1/8,000th of a second. Anyone can do the math. And if you look at the picture, and you look at the length of the bullet streak, he's suggesting that's too fast of a bullet. There's probably an error here. I'm just glad it wasn't a chemtrail. Those things are really deadly, I heard. The New York Times photographer Doug Mill took that photo, and he's covered in red flags. He won 2 Pulitzers, one for the coverage of the Monica Lewinsky scandal, which I have also shown was staged. So like the various government attorneys I've blown the cover of, Mills appears to be a plant from Intel. I guess we could say the same for Richard Drew, who did the 9/11 Falling Man and RFK's death. Similar to this one. Each of them having iconic photos with an assassination theme and a 9/11 theme. Then there is the reaction of the crowd behind Trump. They sit there like idiots, not running or ducking. Some are filming on their phones. Most continue to watch as if it's on TV, and that's because they know the bangs are just blanks. One of the guys interviewed after admitted it sounded like fireworks from behind the stage, not an AR-15 100 yards in front of the stage. He went off script badly, as these crisis actors always do. Yeah, this happens quite a lot. I put a link to this at minds.com. Now this is really weird, and I noticed someone else found this too. So we're looking at the fireman who was killed, Corey Comparator, and someone in Gilded came up with this. His story doesn't add up. We're being told he was an ex-fire chief in Buffalo Township, but his LinkedIn profile doesn't mention being a firefighter. It just says he worked in Butler for 30 years. And he's looking at this LinkedIn, and there are 2 Corey comparators in that area of the same age who look the same. But the InstaCheckmate in Intello says there's 1. But anyway, there's some overlapping here. It looks like it could be a made-up character. Goes on to say here, they spelled his name wrong at the memorial, and you can see that. Then we have the matter of the shoes photograph being left on the stage after the event. Trump said the Secret Service knocked him out of his shoes when they pulled him down, and he was wearing tightly laced wingtips. So why do we always see these shoes in fake events? Well, obviously, this is again Miles Mathis, this refers to the 1997 film Wag the Dog and the Willie Nelson song Old Shoe. They're admitting the dog is being wagged here. Now that's novel. I have not heard that. Very interesting. Because this is a thing. In fact, look up I'll look it up for you. The Ned Pepper shooting, which is in Dalton, Ohio. If you look at all the news coverage, there's just piles and piles of shoes everywhere. Like a bar shooting, and everybody ran. And so the idea here is, I guess, that if there's a shooting, people run so fast that their shoes fall off. Here we go. Gadsden Times, gunmen stopped in seconds. If you look here, there's a pile of shoes in the middle of the road. Makes no sense. But we have seen this as a consistent theme at every major psyop. In fact, we look for the single shoe. It's a cliche. It's a kind of a trope. It's like, what is this? What does this single shoe mean? Is it a sign? Is it a symbol? And I think it is. I think this wag the dog thing makes a lot of sense. But like what is with this? Like, I've been to races and foot races. People don't run out of their shoes at the starting line. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hi, is Tim Osman there?
Hey, what's up, caller? What are you calling on?
Hey, upside down guy here. Hey, I was calling. Did you hear that Trump was shot a couple weeks ago?
Did I hear? We were live when it happened, and we predicted it, so we weren't surprised. Were you surprised?
Hey, all right, I'll stop joking around. Hey, remember when you first did that? Sorry, I just stepped in a puddle. When you first did that stream, do you know, like, there was 3 people listed as the shooter that day?
Yeah, there was the Italian guy. I think that was a joke. And then you had some guy who looked like the shooter who thought it would be funny to upload a trolley video. And yeah, so that's typical. There was, and I think somebody said Matt Hyde was the shooter, which is also typical. It's just a way to get clout.
Well, there was like well, I mean, I really don't know those 3 that you were talking about, but like there was like this big, kind of like a chunky person. Sorry, I'm trying to get.
Yeah, the chunky guy was the Italian guy, and he was not the shooter. I think someone did it as a prank, but the very first day, his name was I think it was Mark Violet. So Mark Violet was the first.
Violet. The first time I heard about this whole situation, I saw, like, it was from you. I saw IPS was on, and then I saw Trump like swat his neck, and I'm like, oh, like, did he get stung by a mosquito? And then I realized, like, the whole assassination attempt, and then he goes on to say that he felt like the bullet was a mosquito sting. Did you see Trump talk about the situation?
Oh yeah, we've been following it very closely, and up until the minute we were discussing the predictive programming, and I had pointed out, look at the Atlantic. It has this ominous head wound symbolism, and the top of his ear is shot off, or clipped off. And so no, we were absolutely, like, I mean, you don't think it was real, do you?
A part of me wishes it was, but I keep looking into it, and it sounds so more and more unbelievable. Okay. So the first one that they say was Violet. Then there was a second one, which has huge implications in the whole situation that I don't know if you've delved into.
I haven't, but I'll look into it because there's a chance here that these could be deliberately planted leads to screw with the first initial investigators, discredit them, and they could also contain narrative hints because Donald Trump Jr. had made a reference to political violence, but he misspelled it as Violet, so Mark Violet. So there was this suggestion that maybe that was a connection. And then, of course,
All right,
Mark.
okay.
But yeah, so you get it.
Yeah, yeah. The narrative is like the second one that they claimed was the shooter. He was arrested there in Butler in 2016 for public violence. I think he was an Antifa member, and he got very aggressive in the crowd and arrested. Um, but he
Right.
disappeared off of social media. I don't know his name. I'm very bad with names. I don't even know your name.
Well, the guy, the Mark Violent guy, by the way. So that was an Antifa, and immediately no, I mean Tom McDonald, the rapper, did a rap about how Antifa is so violent and how
Yeah, you miss
yeah.
me, well, you gotta kiss me. Yeah, he did a beautiful rap.
Well, it
But
was, but the thing
it,
is, no, he rapped though based on it being an Antifa shooter, not some black rock kind of connected Republican. I mean, I think he kind of went. I think he should have waited for the facts. I think he should have waited before he wrote his rap out. But
he's like the left is something like the left can't meme and the right can't write. It's like the right can't write. Like what? What does that even mean?
I
He,
think
I like. I
it's
think that's
Chat GPT. I think he uses Chat GPT to write his rap lyrics, and he's like, just mix up gender ideology with CRT and DEI and MAGA, and he gets these things cranked out for him. Hey, the second shooter
it's
was
pretty.
Maxwell Urick. Almost sounds like
Yeah.
Earache, like earache.
All right. If people are saying that, then his history is pretty crazy because Um, his dad owns a van, and there was a van located close by with Ohio plates or Arizona plates or somewhere where his family's from, and it's the same van that his dad owns. And the FBI claims that there was explosives in the van, but also they claim that there was explosive in Crook's vehicle, which was like a Odyssey, like some, I don't know, some type of vehicle.
You see what they do though? They add on stuff. But they're saturating the field here with so many different stories, like second shooter, shooter on the water tower. Maybe the shooter was in the bleachers. There was a drone. Maybe Iran was behind it. The guy was maybe Israel was behind him, and some are saying he was a Jewish shooter. So I'm seeing all these stories, and none of these stories take into account that you're just talking about movie props, fake bombs in a van, a narrative that's meant to distract you from the fact that the whole thing was a magic trick. And we're keeping our sights on the fact that this was a magic trick. None of it was real. All of these other spin-off stories are there to get truthers distracted, and it works.
And I really hate that like they show the screaming civilians and like the firefighter got shot. Like the one public servant that works for the government is because like if you work as a firefighter or a police officer, you kind of sign your life over to where like if you die in the line of duty or while you're employed with it, it's really up to you. Like you agree to die in the line of service. And I don't think if Crooks popped off 3 shots that quick that the firefighter uh, got his family together and like protected his family. I think that's like a false story because like you couldn't possibly respond in time to cover your family
Yeah,
in those
I
three
didn't
shots.
I didn't find it to be that believable either. It's like they made it up after the fact. There wasn't enough time for him to dive in front of those people. I didn't buy that story, but it's just to invoke 9/11 imagery and firemen. You got the
Well,
whole idea of the
exactly. Like you say like no one died in 9/11, but I personally think that people that work for the government that sign up for it are liable or disposable
Now,
to say it.
there are some people
Um,
who say that. I'm curious as to why, though. There are some people who cannot let go. They're like, okay, I don't believe the planes. I don't believe that the Pentagon had deaths, but there has to be someone somewhere that died. There has to be blood. And I call this death clinging. So you have to cling on
all
to it.
right,
And so
but
your thing is, well, maybe there was somebody disposable they had to kill. Like, why even invent anything like that? Because the instant they commit a
well,
real crime, their NDAs are invalid.
killing someone that works for the government, I don't think is a real crime.
But it's an absurd proposition just to bring it up for no reason. It's like we know it's a psyop and it's a movie. Why throw in this random element of maybe they killed some people? Why speculate? Why speculate when all
Well,
you do is you're lending credence to their story, even minorly?
okay, why is the biggest 9/11 truther advocate the father of a firefighter?
Who would that be?
I, I said earlier I'm bad with names. I can get you the name. I'll send you the name. He's the biggest. It's 9/11 Truth. It's like the biggest YouTube channel for 9/11. Um, it's the father of a firefighter
Well, anyway,
that
that's
died.
ancient history. Anybody who's still triggered by 9/11 has no clue. Anyone still
Well, I'm
saying
just
false
saying.
flag, it's
I
like
just
he has no clue.
Yep.
At this point, we're trying to get away from the clueless. I'm not trying to pander to the clueless who cannot accept the full story, so they need to have a few little straws to grasp onto. Well, maybe there were some. No, there weren't any deaths. And if you can't grasp that, stay in Trutherville with your
I just
theatrical blood.
I just I just think it's so fake because the congressional hearings with the Secret Service head, the lady, can't answer any questions. She can't
Scripted.
answer how many.
It's scripted.
It's
It's
so
scripted to
I know
inflame the
it's
right
so
wing
obvious,
against
right?
DEI. They'll say she was a DEI hire. So this is scripted to allow the right wing to dog whistle sexism and racism. It's scripted to keep everyone on the same page that the event was real. If the event wasn't real, then the Secret Service agents there were all actors in this capacity. And they were playing the role, looking like clowns on purpose, but simultaneously providing these really awesome PR shots that looked like the memorial from the Marine Memorial or the Braveheart movie cover. So this was a scripted event, a great PR stunt. And so if you're looking at, oh, well, this person resigned, that's not a win. This is theater. It's not a win for the right. It's not accountability. It's all circus to hide the fakery.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like it's if you believe in it and you're watching it, it's so aggravating that the Secret Service can't answer a question or won't answer a question. Like that's like sounds like contempt of court. And like why wouldn't they be prosecuted for not answering the question?
To generate outrage on the right wing. And it's working and
It,
generate discourse. And also, all the people talking about this conversation like it's real, where she's calling out the head of the Secret Service, these people who are talking about it are clueless. They're deceived. They don't know it was fake. They can't even approach that. They're a million miles away. It's all theater. I mean, I think you get my point here that that person being fired was part of the script.
well, yeah, well then like left 9, 10 days afterwards, and then like, well, I think she resigned. She didn't get fired. She resigned.
Well, yeah, she
So
was scripted to resign, and this is going to be used to fuel the right, saying, "Oh, look, this wouldn't have happened
oh, she
if."
gets all her yeah, she gets all her benefits and retirement income. Like, oh, we're paying for this. Like the Secret Service gets $3.8 billion a year to protect government figures. It's like, whoa, 3.8 billion. Like I could buy so many
Well, anyway, let's move on
tools
from
with
this.
that.
I think we're all on the same sheet here. None of us here are struggling to understand what happened. None of us here are scratching our heads like, "Oh, was there a second shooter?"
Oh,
And I think truthers are
sorry,
hilarious
I've
because
tuned in
the
late.
truthers advertise their cluelessness like it's insight. Like, I don't know what's going on. I'm just asking questions. I'm confused. I'm scared about weird things. I'm like, that's not a position of power. That's not situational awareness. That's lost sheep. And I try to really stray away from all these lost sheep narratives that are there to trap you.
Yeah, if it sounds like a duck and smells like a duck, it might be fake.
Well, it's all fake because mass media's structure, its very infrastructure, is designed to create our history. And they act it out on the world stage and they call it news. But that's its purpose and always has been. It's always been worldview formation. We don't have media. In the sense people think there's reporters getting facts and bringing them to you. We don't have that. I mean, you have it to some limited extent, but the overarching creative control is global, monolithic, ubiquitous, and unchallenged.
All right, I guess I might have a different field of view to where I think if people that work in uh, for the government, as such as a firefighter, police officer, government official, they can be scapegoated and railroaded into being uh, pushed into a false narrative without their consent, and they will be shut out, like their voices will not be heard, and they will be totally found guilty or found dead, or be able to be murdered, basically, without um, like the
There haven't been any
innocent.
whistleblowers. There's never been any whistleblowers because there's nothing to blow a whistle on. If any crimes were committed in the creation of any PR stunt psychological operations, it would invalidate every NDA and you would have whistleblowers. You don't have any because these aren't crimes. These psyops aren't crimes. These terror attacks aren't real crimes. This assassination attempt was not a crime. It was a PR stunt, WWE style magic trick. And so once we separate this from the realm of it was a real thing, you can look at it in its right context. It's another
All
branch of
right, do you know?
entertainment, it's a subset
So,
of mind control. It's government by entertainment, government by bread and circuses.
yeah, completely entertained. Do we know anything about the other people that were injured during the situation?
Yeah, we have their names, we have their initials, and we know that these are all actors as well because nobody was injured. Nobody was
do,
injured.
do we do we know their occupations?
Yeah, there's plenty to look for. You can look at their names, their dates, their backstories. It's all there. But what I'm saying is that these are all actors, necessarily so. You have JFK Jr. in his John Denver costume in the back, not reacting, wearing a George Magazine T-shirt that says "Dodging Bullets." It's staged A to Z. This is not a debate. We're talking about a movie that's been projected onto the world stage as a real event. This is the simulation.
Yeah, the Fusca guy didn't react very well for the whole situation. But before I interrupted with my phone call, were you talking about anything else?
Mainly this, and tonight I've organized an International Space Station viewing. So there's a few people who are out right now waiting to record it. I'm going to go record it in
What?
about 33 minutes.
You're finally doing an ISS watch party?
Yeah, we organized it for tonight, and a lot of people are going to go out, but I have rules set up to eliminate people sending me airplanes, which is what they normally do.
Uh, I have a video on my computer where it's labeled "Finally watch the ISS transit," but it's a video of like a dildo as a silhouette flying across the moon very quickly,
Oh, well, hey,
where it's kind of
Diana
obscure.
Southard says, ask the caller to describe his own hair. Is it a blue bowl cut?
My own hair? I actually have a red bowl cut.
Red bowl cut. Okay.
My
Jennifer
personal hair in my real life.
Jennifer Reeve says it's cloudy where she is. I want to point this out. According to what they say, the space station is the third brightest object in the night sky. Brighter than Venus, brighter than Sirius. So you should be able to see it through the clouds.
I don't even think it's not even a full moon night.
No, you don't. You can see it any
Oh,
night. All you have to do is look up. You didn't know? If you want to see the space station, just go outside and look up. Touch grass.
I
Go
did
out.
it. I
Leave
did
your
a
basement.
360 view. I don't see the moon in Texas.
Well, if you want to participate, check out the ISS tracking site, and we will be reporting on the results tomorrow. And I'll be
All right.
happy.
How do you feel? What's your thoughts on Jeranism? Do you think you could ever interact with him again on a, a friendly manner?
Oh, we can be totally friendly, but I can't lie. And the fact that he did a lunar and solar ISS transit means that he's doing government propaganda as an informant for
Well,
the
okay. All
FBI.
right.
There's
So
no other option. So he's a
this
liar.
little look. All right. So this little lookout party. If someone sees it, like, will you be like, oh, maybe he wasn't lying? Because I feel like he both. I mean, I feel like if anyone's more of a liar? I think it's you.
We'll see. I mean, I haven't told any lies, but he presented fake transits. Those are lies. Those are visual lies. Those are insert shots.
Have you have you ever had skin to skin contact with Marcus Goldfinch?
Um, I can't prove it, but there was this one day where
Like a
I was
handshake?
going to a
Like a
Starbucks,
handshake?
and as I was pulling up, they said, "Yeah, this customer a few cars back bought everybody's drinks." So I didn't think anything of it. But then this car that I was looking at, it was like a white, I don't think it was a Dodge Charger or something. The windows were super tinted, and it sped past me as I was driving by my apartment, and very conspicuously displayed on the dashboard was one of these Guy Fawkes anonymous masks, and it looked like it was
No,
made out.
it was Dan the Waterman following you to Kmart. But what I'm thinking is
Dan the
maybe
Waterman. Who? Oh,
you,
Dan the Waterman is
yeah. What I'm thinking is you and Marcus Goldfinch had a sexual relationship and you guys broke
okay.
up,
You sound
and
like
then
you're high on something. That's upside down guy. He gets triggered whenever we call out Jaren as a liar. He's done this before. He used to jump into our Discord server, drop racial slurs. Anytime we would talk about Jaren faking ISS transits. And this has been years. It's like, why is this person so concerned with advocating on behalf of NASA and defending them against our claims? Can't let these people call NASA's transits fake, even though I've never seen it. You're a non NASA fanboy. What's your agenda? But every time he asks, he's always asking about Jaren. He's like, do you still believe that Jaren faked his ISS transits? Well, yeah, he obviously did. You can't really demonstrate otherwise. These things are all faked. The transits in front of the moon and sun are faked. Lame troll confirmed, says Lean Dion. Yeah, that was quite a setup for what was supposed to be a punchline, which was not even really a punchline. Esteban said Jaren wanted to have a measuring contest with Jake the A-hole. Anufel says, "Damn, Tim, have his hater take that." Yeah, I don't think he's a hater. I think he was just a troll. But I do think that maybe he's being paid by Jaren to defend Jaren, because he's been doing this for literally years, since 2021. It's like, get over it. Jaren's a liar. And I wouldn't even be saying it if you didn't ask me my opinion, if you didn't ask me my assessment. And here's what I mean. And we're going to do our observations tonight regardless. And we're going to continue to do observations every week. But the ISS transits in front of the moon and sun are not valid because there are no eyewitnesses. You understand? No eyewitnesses, no sighting. Oh, I'm going to go record the ISS, but I'm going to do it in the middle of the day when it crosses the sun so nobody can see it. But I'll use a solar filter so you can see it on video. And just trust me that the video is not being edited. Oh, you mean you're doing a solar transit with no eyewitnesses so you can cherry pick a time and a date, and you can just base your, quote, viewing off of the simulation? You can validate the model by cherry picking evidence? How convenient. That's the reason why we're doing the observations the way that we are. No lunar, no solar, eyewitnesses only. If you can't provide eyewitness evidence with the video starting a minute before it arrives and keeping it on until it disappears, it's not evidence. We have standards here. Violet Pengon says my ISS is real, leave it alone. Yeah, anybody still walking around with theatrical blood on their hands, kick them off the raft. Auto hoaxer GTFO, you're still crying for fake dead people? Sorry, go to Trutherville. Take some of their Mentonol pills, you'll feel better. You're still seeing UFOs or strange lights in the sky? You're still afraid of cirrus clouds? You're still advocating for NASA, or you're still thinking people died somewhere? I mean, you're clinging to the illusion, and we've left it behind. And we are the devil's advocates, by the way. I do have repeat callers and people who consistently challenge us as though they're playing the devil's advocate. Like, let me be the devil's advocate, and maybe the media isn't lying and you're wrong. No, it doesn't work that way. The media has the consensus. They have the assumed default truth. We are the devil's advocate. In fact, we're making these arguments based on facts, though. But if anyone is in the antagonist position or is the challenger, it's us. We are the skeptics. You're not being skeptical if you're challenging the skeptics without rejecting the initial frame of reference the mainstream view gave you. This is worldview warfare. You've got three groups of people in the world. You got the programmers, who are very few. You have the programmed, the multitudes. And then you have an even smaller group, the deprogrammed. But the difference between the deprogrammed and the programmers is we don't have any limits or barriers as to what information we can get our hands on. The programmers are on a need-to-know basis, stratified, compartmentalized in some kind of a security clearance setup based on a need-to-know for whatever aspect of the PSYOP they're a part of. So for example, your average crisis actor, like let's say a Wayne Sexton or any one of these school shooting type witnesses, there is no reason for them to know about total worldview warfare. They think they're just doing propaganda. And they probably agree with the agendas. They wouldn't be given the full picture. And so they might be part of the quote programming class, but the programmers exist at various levels of awareness. Whereas the deprogrammed, again, we're trying to get a full spectrum, full view, what I call the off-world stage perspective. Truth Hurt says, what's your thought on the new Bohemian Grove video? I think the Bohemian Grove is a nothing burger. Ryan Garcia, Mr. Me Too at Bohemian Grove, was a troll, admittedly. Alex Jones was trolling. If you look at the Bohemian Grove, it's like a summer camp. It's like Boy Scouts. It's like a summer camp for families, and they watch this big thing burn, but it's only ominous if you interpret it in a certain way. But there's no human sacrifice. There's no drooling Satanists threatening to kill Alex Jones if he doesn't shut up, and they exaggerate these things. So I think it's a nothing burger. Level Heading says, love Tim, goodbye, thank you for joining. You can catch the replay or get the archives, go to ips.monster. I don't feel bad for calling out a sellout. The fact that someone would sell out, or maybe they had no choice, but the fact that somebody would help NASA by taking a controlled opposition position and supplying fake evidence, that's unconscionable. That's low, really low. And so I shouldn't feel bad for calling it out. He should feel very bad for selling out. That was fake, and he knows it was fake. And very few people are going to come out and say it. I don't know why. I mean, fake is fake. And if it's not fake, do it again. If it's not fake, record it without a solar or lunar transit, but just record it with your phone off the app, like everybody says. And even he said that to me. He said to me, you could just get the app and go out and see it. Just look up. You don't look up. It's like, what do you mean? I can describe, there are periods in my life where I was up at sunset, or I would be, it just depends on my work schedules. A lot of times, though, I'd watch every sunrise, or I'd be watching every sunset, or I'd be awake around the time where it would be viewable. And I've seen many, shooting stars. I've seen lots of little, which I used to think were satellites, but obviously airplanes. But I've never seen the so-called ISS. So it's not like I'm not looking up. And if it's as bright as they say, I think I would have seen it. So I'm incredibly skeptical, especially since we know that NASA has lied on everything else. If everything else is fake, why assume this is real? But a lot of people do. And they do because of people like Jaron, misleaders, who have supplied bad evidence by abusing the trust of their listeners and followers and subscribers. I mean, what a stab in the back. But we're going to move on from this, because tonight, in 22 minutes, I'm going to go out and I'm going to try to record a space station. And others are as well. Upside Down Guy says, what's the observation on the moon about tonight? No, we're observing the space station, and you just go to the ISS tracker site. It's really easy. Just get the app, download it, and look up. Just go outside. Upside Down Guy has some interesting fan fiction in the comments about Goldfinch and I. I guess you would call this fan fiction. Whatever floats your Space station. Jay Diggs says, it's that easy though. Maybe it just depends on where you are. Well, we're going to see. We're going to see. Upside Down Guy says, what if you see a transit? I don't know why you're so defensive on behalf of NASA. I'm sure they love you for it. Why haven't you seen it? Where's your video? If I believed in spaceships, I'd be out there recording it every night. It's like, look, guys, I got a spaceship in my selfie flying over my head. This would be on TikTok. There'd be TikTokers recording ISS transit selfies, and there aren't. All right, let's move on. We were talking about Miles Mathis, Jim Fetzer. The New European put out this headline: "The bullet hit Trump, but it killed Biden. The single gunshot that changed the trajectory of the world." Here's a bit of predictive programming. Saving Private Ryan. There's a scene where a sniper has his eye shot out. The actor who played the sniper whose eye was shot, and if you look at the movie poster, you see him with one eye covered. His name is Leo Stransky, and he was born on Donald Trump's birthday, 6/14. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, Tim, I'm calling back just to promote a false narrative.
Yeah, what is your false narrative?
My false narrative is that you and Marcus Gold.
Okay. Why don't you write it down and just send it to me? I used to be into publishing, and I never published erotica, but I will proofread it and put it through Grammarly if you want to just write it down. I used to hire writers. I never got into that genre, but we're going to have to just end the phone calls. Upside Down Guy is rattled. What is that? Is that Jaren with the voice changer? Anyone here? Why is this guy so triggered? Why so triggered? Okay, moving on here. Dinah Southheart says sophomoric. Mizell says block him. Well, we rattled him, and we've dealt with this before. It's like when he's being nice, he's obviously trying to get in close, but there's an agenda here, and his agenda from day one has been defending Jaren. Strange, really. Upside Down Erotica says in Velis. Yeah. That sounds interesting. Well, if you're going to write some fan fiction, throw JFK Jr. in there. There's a lot of that going around. There's all kinds of fan fiction about how certain people at Fox News, like Jesse Waters, and then Trump's White House speaker, I think her name was Kelly or something, that these are all secret children of JFK Jr., that Barron Trump is the son of Donald Trump and Princess Diana. Some say he's the son of General Patton and Princess Diana. All kinds. Don't let reality and facts get in the way of a good narrative. Upside Down Guy says, hear me out. Appreciate the $20 super chat. I would just say this. Write it down and then send it to me. Because we're not here to do collaborative creative fiction live. Although we do this stuff in Discord. Okay, here's a comment from Bogan on John LeBon's video. Remember the Highway of Death. Great video, by the way. I'll put a link right now.
I'm sure you guys have heard of this before. There was this thing called the Highway of Death 33 years ago to do with the whole Iraq War, the Gulf War, all that kind of stuff. And I recently interviewed someone who believes the whole thing was a hoax and nobody died, nobody got hurt.
Great video here. I put a link. Remember the Highway of Death. A bit of retro auto hoaxing. And you see a lot of nothing, just toys and symbolism. Very dramatic. Very low budget psyop compared to what we see today. But I went through the comments, and one of them caught my eye here. Bogan said, Starlink ping time is 48 milliseconds. And what he means is this. They are clearly at a much lower altitude than what is claimed. The ping time is more in line with the Google Loon program. If you're not familiar, Google Loon, or Loon X, was an internet service delivered by balloons. The world's first internet via balloon service. And it was serving people everywhere. Loon LLC and it was providing internet access to rural and remote areas. The reason why it was discontinued is that it wasn't economically viable. The technology is solid. They hope to have, it says they hoped to have thousands of balloons flying in the stratosphere. Well, I would posit here that Loon X never stopped. They just branded it differently and called it Starlink satellites. And so when the person says the ping time for Starlink is more consistent with a stratospheric balloon, I think this is why. And I've seen these. I actually saw Loon X before they, quote, discontinued it. So just a heads up, you're getting your service from a balloon. Luis Ortiz says, Upside Down Guy's police. He could be a cop. There was a time where he was contacting a judge from the Buffalo shooter trial and trying to get some information. I'm not sure what that was, except perhaps maybe an attempt to make IPR reporters appear to be crazy or unhinged. You have to be careful. There are a lot of bad actors in this area. Elephant Tusk says, Retro Auto Hoax, the Matthew Shepard incident in Wyoming in 1998. Okay, yeah, anything that you've seen, any PSYOP from the past, you have to go back and look at it. Well, I mean, any major event of the past, you have to look at it as a possible PSYOP. I've seen some stories here. Clearly, you have martyrs, and then they invent their own stories. They choose the facts they want. Convenient deaths. So there are convenient deaths. Or it could be 100% fabrication. I'll have to look. Bach Precision said the original uploader of the Highway of Death video deleted it and then made day trading videos. Interesting. This is a coincidence. Hurricane Beryl, and this is also another coincidence. Let me first here. Kamala Harris with her grandmother Beryl. People are connecting this, and her shirt does kind of look like the same design, the same color pattern. But Beryl. Coincidentally, I looked up the word Beryl hours before the hurricane was reported because it showed up in a book I was reading, and it was describing this chariot encrusted in certain types of stones. Alright, so in about 10 minutes I have to go out and record the space station, or at least attempt to. SpaceX has dreamed up a Dragon ship on steroids to pull it down, so they're talking about that. One of the points I made tonight, and I think this is bears repeating, because I have a lot of people in my life who are convinced the Trump thing was real. Nobody I know said, oh, that looks fake. The only people who say so are people here. So I want to make the point that I don't think you can, and even if you think you can, it won't always be the case, as the special effects improve. You can't argue for fakery just by pointing at the screen and saying, it looks fake to me. I think the claim of it being fake has to come from a position of informed disbelief rather than low information disbelief, the knee-jerk automatically rejecting. I think it requires a thorough analysis of context, not to mention information that won't be available when it's initially reported, so you have to suspend judgment. But when I say thorough context, it also has to be understood in the context of what media really is, what its function is, and how it works, what predictive, concurrent, and reinforcement programming are, and what they aren't. We've moved past synchromysticism, Mandela effects, and revelation of the method. We know what predictive programming is, and it's more analogous to marketing than anything approaching mysticism or eerie coincidences. It's a form of target marketing propaganda narratives. But the entire truth community is responding as though the event was real. People like Jones and others. The rest of them are chasing second shooters. So the consensus, even among Trutherville, isn't even calling it fake. They're calling it a false flag. So if you call it fake, or some people will say, oh, I think it looks staged, then they'll stop and they'll say, well, then it has to be real because the fireman died. So if you're going to call it fake, you have to call the whole thing fake. every person there and both sides complicit. The same media that presented this event presented you with January 6th. If Trump was an insider on this, he's an insider on January 6th. Same with Alex Jones. None of these individuals are being fooled. Like, oh, we were tricked by the fake school shootings, but January 6th we saw through. No, no. They're part of it. They're complicit in all of it. I still think it's strange that people are taking sides and thinking that they can vote for one side or the other, and it's going to somehow change things in their favor. Both parties are parties of deception, and it's an elite operation to control the multitudes. We've already kind of cracked this code. We've already figured out what they're doing with predictive programming, and it's real. Predictive programming is one of these things that has been misunderstood on purpose, and then there are some who would deny that it's there. People like Mike Rothschild, which is ironic considering he wrote two of the most popular conspiracy theorist books in the last couple of years, Jewish Space Lasers and Q, The Coming Storm. Mike Rothschild says predictive programming doesn't exist. Well, that's a denial of reality. It exists. The only question is what explains it. And there's a few schools of thought. One will say, oh, these are just coincidences. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Others will say, this was caused by a higher power because man couldn't do this. The new perspective, which we bring here, is that predictive programming is part of a continuous narrative that connects future news events to past foreshadowing as a form of marketing, conditioning, and repetition of messaging. Upside Down Guy says, Tim, stop being a closet lying loser. Your shame is repulsive. I don't know what you're accusing me of lying about. You know, I'm calling out the fact that ISS transits are faked. And if that makes you mad, I don't know how to help you. The moon landing was fake. Does that bother you? And you're probably really mad that nobody died at Uvalde. I'm sorry, but maybe you expended a lot of tears crying for all the fake dead kids. No way you can soak. You can't just suck those tears back up into your eye ducts. I mean, your tear ducts. Those are wasted tears. Oceans of wasted tears. Pining for fake dead people. And maybe it's annoying that I'm calling out the fact that you've accepted lies, but again, it's not my problem. Kuwabara says, Chalk Body Outline said the agenda of the media controllers is to wake everybody up to auto hoax and lead them away from being mainstream Christians that goes to church. There are some people who think that there's some intentional effort to, quote, wake people up. That truthers are being let in on a secret ahead of everybody else. The QAnoners think this. They think that, oh, we know something you guys don't. We're watching a movie. But they've been led into a deeper level of deception. McDaniel says there was a Will Smith movie called Focus, where predictive programming was called priming. Yeah, in fact, in that movie, we went over it. There's a clip where they're trying to get someone to think about or select a certain player, a certain jersey number. And what they did, it was called the gambling scene. Let me pull this up, number 55, where they were able to more or less coerce this guy. Coerce him into choosing this very specific thing by surrounding him covertly, subliminally, with the number 55. So wherever he went, it would be there. And it turns out, what you find out in the scene, is that these were placed there in advance to lead him to this conclusion, and he had no idea that he was being manipulated.
Oh, fucking way! That is amazing!
Let's see if I can find the exact clip here. I'll have to watch the movie. It's called Focus. I don't have time to play it now. I have to go record the Millennium Falcon. But basically, the movie Focus calls it priming, and it's a real-time manipulation. And we've seen this. We were primed for Trump getting shot in the ear. Thine ear shall bleed. We were primed for the president being shot in various movies. The Man in Full was Trump being killed. The movie Civil War was Trump being killed. Fallout had predictive programming for Trump getting blood on the right side of his head, some kind of a stolen election, and Betty Pearson, who's a Kamala Harris stand-in, taking over. We've been talking about this, we haven't been surprised by any of it. Elephant Tusk says, come back after the ISS charade. Well, Upside Down Guy, I'll give you an update here on myself and Goldfinch. The pre-trial hearing is scheduled for October 31st. He's a defendant. He was sued at the Marco Polo headquarters. That's where he was served, and that's because he's on Marco Polo's board of directors. He's the financer. Hunter Biden is suing Garrett Ziegler and 9 or 10 unnamed defendants. Goldfinch is one of them. In fact, just yesterday it was reported that Hunter Biden has withdrawn his defamation suit against Fox for using the laptop, and he was citing various revenge porn laws. And they said, well, he's refiling it against new defendants. Who could that be? So there have been some developments, not until October, but looks like we're going to get the trial. I don't think unless they want to settle with me, but I'm not even slightly interested in settling. Yesterday we coined a new term, truther-tainers. Truther-tainers refer to truthers who make up, fabricate, pass on bad information. There was this truther-tainer who tried to say that Kamala Harris is Prince. And I find this to be truthertainment. Like, they're not lying maliciously. They're doing it for clicks. They're doing it for entertainment. And their theories aren't serious. And I asked him, I was like, well, what's your evidence? He says they look the same. I'm like, well, then, how do you explain Montel Williams? Was Montel Williams dating Prince in 2001? Obviously not. But truthertainers don't do their research because they aren't legitimate researchers. They're, in fact, part of the problem. They're part of what I would consider to be the saturation of the collective psyche with the sea of irrelevance. So much information that there's no context. It's just noise. There's so much noise to signal. We're pure signal here. No noise. Rocky Shepard says, 10:33 p.m. Okay, now, you got your P900 ready. Excellent. So if you're going to record the ISS, and I have some standards here, our rules of evidence. Let me go over these really quick, then I'm going to run out the door to the parking lot across the street. The rules of evidence for the IPS viewing party, and I'll put the link below. Do you believe the International Space Station is more than a bad movie? Now's your chance to demonstrate its existence. When? 7/23/2024. Where? Your location. Video must begin before the ISS's scheduled appearance, and it must be recorded for the entirety of the transit. Your video must be submitted with your exact location and accompanied by the tracking data. Your video should be accompanied by a statement of good faith saying, quote, I believe this is the ISS. Unambiguous terms. No, maybe it's just a light. No, I need you to say, I believe this is a spaceship. Submit the evidence to infiniteplainsociety@gmail.com, and then I will be assessing the evidence, and I have a couple of people to run it by who would know if they're looking at an airplane or not. Violet Pangon says, non-auto hoaxers come here wasting your time. That's probably an agenda, and I allow it to some degree. I do allow some certain questionable individuals to come in and advocate for MSM Plus. I allow some to advocate for NASA even, and that's just so we can study them and reverse engineer their arguments. And their arguments are shallow and feeble, but it's useful to understand the structure of them so we can break them, because that's ultimately what we're doing here. We do have an objective. This think tank has its turrets aimed at various guardrails within the truther community, but eventually we're going to the main stream infrastructure, and if we do it right, and I believe we can, I think we can do billions and billions of dollars of damage to MSM infrastructure, requiring massive damage control operations. I mean, it should be a big S show, which is kind of the point. It will be fun. And this is really just, it's a philosophical thing. They're in a mind war. They're engaging in perpetual mind war. Fear-based mind control, trauma-induced mind control, MK Ultra for the masses, and we're kind of the antidote. And I'm curious to see what happens when we're totally unleashed. They have no defense against this. They can't just malign this, impugn this, and marginalize it as they could with the simplistic flat Earth versus round Earth topic. This is far more all-encompassing. All right, I'll see you all later. I'm going to go off right now and do the ISS transit. I might be back, depending on what I see. This is Autohoaxology.
Chemtrails, I don't live in Truthville. Just because you saw it on the screen doesn't make it real. I don't take the red pill, I don't take the blue pill. I just choose to follow my dreams, Autohoax and chill. I stepped off the world stage and I've moved away from all the fake outrage and the hearsay. And I don't give the time of day to lose a naysay, because they got a bad case of the mind age. I stepped away from the game entirely. I won't be caught up in their lame dichotomy. I stepped away from the cage entirely. I'm free today and my mind's been set by reading Autohoaxology.